Welcome to Lunch with Tech Leaders, where we have engaging conversations about software development and cloud engineering with industry leaders and subject matter experts. These episodes are created by the Great Lakes Tech Leaders, an online community of technology practitioners. Please come join the conversation by visiting gltl.rbn.ai. Again, that's gltl.rbn.ai. Now strap in, because we're deploying to production in 3, 2, 1.
Cool. So I think we should, not delay here and jump straight in. This topic is about hiring good engineering teams. I think for people who are looking to be highly engaged in this conversation, I think a quick round of very quick, like your experience in hiring teams or your management experience. And just a slight background, we want to keep time short. So just raise your hand if you want to be called out and introduce yourself, and we'll go through that. I'll go ahead and get us started. My name is Derek DeYoungi. I'm VP of Engineering for Right Brain Networks. I've been in a management role for around 4 years and highly involved in building the team. I'll kind of pass it on. Adam, you want to give kind of keep this moving?
Yeah, sure. Keep it going here. Adam Oberhausen. I've been with Right Brain for about a month now, I think. The director of cloud architecture. Before Right Brain, I was VP of infrastructure for DaySmart Software, where I oversaw cloud engineering, integrations, QA teams. So got a pretty diverse background in hiring for various business units. So I'm excited to talk about this today and see what I can bring. Kick it off to Popcorn Wendy.
Hi, I'm Wendy. I'm a senior DBA for DaySmart. Actually, I have not been on the hiring, and hopefully soon.
All right, great.
Thanks, Popcorn.
Michael.
Yeah.
Yep. Go ahead, Michael.
Hi. Hi, my name is Michael Jarba. I'm the software architect at GSTV. I've been with the company now 9 years. So going through much of the engineering ranks in that time and hiring and seeing a lot of people leave during that time. So yeah, I've kind of seen a lot of the hiring side of engineers over the last decade.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we met at the AWS meetup.
Mm-hmm.
Great. I'm just going to start calling people out. Travis?
Hi, I'm Travis Walker. I'm recently became the manager of cloud engineering at DaySmart Software. I've been there for about 5 years now. Actually, Adam hired me there. So don't have much experience with hiring, but I've certainly started to.
Okay. Nicole?
Hey, I introduced myself last time, Nicole Anderson. Had various roles at DaySmart in the engineering and product side. Definitely was a part of the hiring process for several years in both departments in terms of like interviewing and deciding on candidates and stuff like that. So I have some experience.
Awesome. And Owl, let's kind of keep it short here. Introduction.
Yep, work IT at Ground Speed. Basically, I've been involved in hiring just a couple people.
Okay. Yeah, I've touched base with Ground Speed. There's good folks and lots of cool stuff going on over there. Welcome to the community.
Thank you.
All right. The rest of the team, we have here is Right Brain engineers who have been introduced prior. So let's go ahead and dive in. What's on topic today? So we're talking about hiring good engineering teams. So in my experience, what I've been focused on is building good engineering teams, hiring people that I believe in and are going to make good engineers and investing in them and trying to build them up. So how do we find those people and what kind of attracts them, right? Kind of want to open it up and see how the rest of the team wants to take this conversation here.
Yeah, I'd say that's a good starting point. I mean, I can certainly mirror your sentiment where, I've had a lot of success kind of building up good engineers, entry level, looking for the mindset, especially in like the cloud engineering, where I think you need like a multidisciplinary mindset, where you need to find people who are willing to kind of just jump in and kind of just really start getting into it, and kind of no fear.
Yeah, it's personality, right? Like, there's no school for cloud engineering, right? So it's not like there's a degree that, somebody says, I've gone through this training at school and, I'm ready to be a cloud engineer. It kind of comes from multiple different backgrounds and disciplines, and then kind of investing in an employee to build them up to becoming a good cloud engineer.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I find the cloud engineers are the ones that are naturally curious about anything and everything. And they have generally a penchant for going out and teaching themselves and learning new things, and not being opposed to generally challenging their own beliefs on something, and maybe what they previously thought they knew was wrong, and they throw it out the window and replace it with something else.
Yeah, absolutely. That points at one of RBN's core values is be curious, right? Continually questioning if you're moving in the right engineering or headed in the right direction.
Yeah, I think
challenging yourself. Yeah.
Looking at, and we don't need to focus on cloud engineering. We can talk about hiring developers, hiring product people. Nicole, feel free to chime in. But I think when I looked for, as I would kind of like look for potential candidates within the org, I would look for people who were in the support team that kind of showed some, above and beyond technical prowess. Travis came from the QA team, and he was just kind of like just a go-getter, and you could just see like he had cloud engineer, DevOps mindset just kind of all over him. So it's like the people tend to make themselves obvious. There's a different approach with outside hires. I think it's to me it's more challenging to find the right person from an outside hire, but sometimes you do need to bring in like an experienced mercenary. So do you have any thoughts on like how you find the right person, the outside person versus developing within? Anyone have any thoughts on that?
I think whenever you go outside your company, the biggest challenge generally isn't technical. You can weed through technical skills pretty easily. I think the biggest thing, at least what we found hiring at GSTV, is finding someone who's a culture fit. And that can be a challenge. And that one is often not readily apparent in most interviews. And you really need extended time with excuse me, a candidate to really kind of gauge, is there a culture fit here, and really have like several team members from your team participate in that and have a lot of conversation going back and forth.
Yeah, we've had a lot of experience in that area. It almost kind of seems like nepotism to kind of almost, but I think that's probably not the right term. But rather than having going and Adam, you mentioned hiring from within, but extending that from just within your company to within your network, right? People you've worked with before, either in past employers or through different communities or something like that, but we've had a really, really good experience with. So like I came up through the support organization at Barracuda, I made a lot of really good connections with very, very smart people in the support organization that were ready to make the leap to engineering. And we ended up developing that and supporting them through their move in their career. And it worked out for us. It worked out for them. We've been recently kind of seeing the same type of thing where, you know, I brought over a lot of friends and coworkers from Barracuda, and we've got some folks that have kind of traveled as a tribe from Morgan Liquid Web. Morgan's here, and Will. Both of them are from Liquid Web, and they were in that same area where they were support. They're ready to make that next leap. They need somebody to invest. They need an organization to invest in them and support them while they make that transition from a support engineer to, you know, more of a development and production engineer. And the organization that makes that investment and supports their growth, I tend to see that those people will be much more loyal to the organization and more invested in the team as itself, which has just massive benefits to the way that we build our teams.
Yeah, and I would also add that when you're willing to invest and cultivate, you know, those engineers, like I think you get your tenure. You extend your tenure by at least a couple of years because people are going to have some loyalty because you gave them the opportunity, right, to grow and to become, you know, move beyond their, you know, entry level role, right? So I think that's like a great way to make sure you are like retaining important folks as well.
Yeah, you know, something Jamie said to me the other day. He's like, I don't think that you owe Right Brain anything. And you know, we were talking about like, I want to be here because I love my team. I feel like a part of a community, and I want to continue that growth with my team. So I think that's really important.
Yeah,
I think that,
definitely.
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. All right, I'll go. But yeah, as speaking of like a recent hiree and a recent candidate from going from that one level to the next, you know, having friends that have already worked at this place gave me an insight of what they do, what their culture's like, and really opened my eye to, hey, this might be a place that I really like and want to join. Because as a candidate, I wanted to, you know, search for a company that I would stick with for quite a while. My last company, I was there for 9 years, and I really want to, where I'm going to be at, you know, be invested in me, but also a place that I can also invest in and grow in and, you know, help commit to. So as a candidate, I would speak to that very well.
Yeah, and I think Owl at ground speed, you guys saw a tribe of LlamaSoft engineers kind of roll through there, right? So we can start to see this pattern of how engineering teams that are really tight knit will kind of like move through organizations together over time.
Yep, I can concur with that.
How about the actual process for the interviewing? Like, you know, I'm curious to see if there's like what people have seen or what, typically there's like the phone screening, and then there's you know, beyond that, it kind of goes a wide variety of different directions, but, you know, usually it ends up with, you know, you meet with the manager, then you do a round with your potential coworkers, and then there's some kind of technical interview somewhere in there. But just kind of curious to see what people are seeing out there and what works, what doesn't work, and in particular the technical interviews, like what you know, what are we trying to get out of a technical interview, and what's the right way to conduct a technical interview?
Well, I've been on both sides of a few of them, so I can put my hand out there. I think that interviews that ask you to do a lot of homework it starts on the wrong foot. You're asking someone to, put a large investment into something, and it may just the context may not be there. It just might be it's kind of starting off on the wrong foot, I guess. So, like for instance, not to pick on you guys all, but I was put through a pretty rough interview at ground speed at one point, and I was, coding live on a board, and I was kind of turned off by that. But I feel like there are ways that you can get the technical knowledge out of someone in a way that is less stressful. And we've been kicking around some ideas on how to do that in an environment that makes people feel comfortable. And so I'm wondering what other people's thoughts are. But what my idea is, I'm running a cloud engineering team. So what we were looking at doing is building up an environment, providing documentation about the environment, how it should work, and then breaking something about it, and asking them to log into the AWS account and go debug what's wrong, so we can get and watch them do it live. Maybe not in person, maybe where they're comfortable in their own home, working in their battle station, and just seeing how they debug and their thought processes, and kind of watching that happen, just to kind of gauge that way, rather than something that's a little bit more rigid, like write an algorithm on a whiteboard, right?
Yeah, I'll
Go ahead, Michael.
I'll echo that. It's been quite some time since I've been on the interviewing side of the table, but I remember when I last was like one of the interviews for a company I didn't choose to go work for, which is I was in like a 3-hour long technical coding exercise interview, and it really just set the wrong tone for me, especially when my expectations for it was going to be an hour-long technical interview. And then we kept going for 2 hours after that. And it was like, okay, you really kind of lost me there. And on the other side of the fence, though, at GSTV, what I've taken to more success has been having more conversational problem solving, interviews with candidates, and asking them about, what their past history of work experience has been, and asking them to go through and explain some of the problems they had, and then poking and asking more details about the problems and how they solved them, but then also presenting, other problems in, similar things that I've solved or my organization solved, and or even just general problems, and kind of walking through why did you come to this, or how did you come to this answer, and taking a very kind of casual-ish tone to it, or mentality, very conversational, very sitting across from the person, even if it's virtual, and kind of having a coffee and discussing things, that kind of relaxed attitude.
I've been doing a lot of interviews like that. I've got a organization that is looking for a DevOps engineer, and kind of like a principal engineer, and I've been doing interviews for them because we have a very close partnership, and kind of weeding out some of their like, I'm probably after the phone screen, and after the management kind of gives a thumbs up. Let's talk about, is this person technically able to do what we need them to do? So instead of doing like a hardcore technical like coding interview or something like that, we do more. I've been doing more of a conversational architecture type interview, where I say, all right, you've obviously got the experience and you've come from a good background. I don't want to focus on the things that were wrong at your last organization. Why don't you tell me about what your DevOps utopia looks like? And we kind of work through that together. Like, what are your branching strategies? How are we delivering code? How are we making sure that developers are producing in the most efficient manner and providing the most value to your company and your customers as well. And so getting them out of that rut of like, oh, well, we did this, and talking about what they would like to see in the organization and what they want to bring to the place that they're looking to come, I think really changes the tone and allows them to provide their insight and their and yeah, I'll leave it there.
That has other benefits too, besides just, you know, resetting the tone and taking things very kind of casual. It also allows for candidates to express their imagination and creative problem solving capabilities. So they may, you know, work in a less than ideal environment and be stuck in rigid processes and in things that they don't agree with or particularly like to do. But how they would want to do it can really open the doors and say, you know, how are you able to like generate new ideas and think outside the box about problem solving?
Yeah, absolutely.
As someone who recently went through several interviews, I can say that part of what I did on the interviewee side was I would just be direct with the people interviewing me before any sort of technical interview, like, what am I going to be asked? You know, what can I do to prepare for this? And that really helped like set the tone and expectation for me, because, you know, we all feel anxiety whenever we're put on the spot to write code on a whiteboard. Doesn't matter who you are, but having that foresight to know like what specifically are they going to ask about, and if they were vague in their answer, I would press. I'd be like, I need to know more. Like, I want to prepare for what you're going to ask me, because, you know, I don't want to be put on the spot with a bunch of questions I don't have any context about. So
I saw something because I'm, you know, obviously on the opposite side now, preparing for interviews and just researching. And I saw a mock interview on, because YouTube is a great resource, by the way, for mock interviews. It's, you know, a million examples from all the big companies and people who do this for a living. But one of the guys that started his own company, but he used to work at Twitch, I think. He basically said the way he does it is he sends them ahead of time a document that says, here's the outline of the interview. You're going to have 3 options. You can do a technical question that's like a leak code type question. You can do like what Derek was talking about, more of like we're going to walk through a problem together, a realistic problem, and you show me how you solve it. Or the third option is you bring your own repo and we watch you kind of like make a PR for some code in the real world. And so then like they kind of get to choose their own adventure, which I thought was cool. I've never heard of that.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Nicole, I know you interviewed a lot of developers over your years. Any insights from like that, you know, how you guys did the technical piece, or even just the process with developers, and like kind of how did you distinguish a good developer versus someone who might not be a good fit?
I always lean more on the soft skills, because I agree. Like I hate like just focusing on, you know, can you do these really ridiculously complicated programming questions and on the spot, you know, write some code that no one can read that does something really fancy that you memorize. Like I always hated that was like the formula for an interview. So, I mean, we did have to ask some questions like that, but I feel like our versions were always very simplified. And then what I was always asking or looking for instead was more of like, how are your communication skills? Are you going to be able to work with a team? Are there any red flags about, and there were a few where there were red flags in the interview and I kind of overlooked them, and then ended up that I regretted it later that like, yeah, I did really kind of see that, but I was like, it'll be fine. And then so with each interview, I got more and more like strict about looking for things that like, even if you see a hint of it, because it's like a first date, they're on their best behavior. So if you're starting to even see it there, you know, it's probably going to become an issue. So that's where I would focus, is more just like, how do you think? How do you work with others? Because all that other stuff I feel like can be taught, or it doesn't really matter in a real situation. You're not going to be writing an algorithm for your job. So I don't really care if you like know how to do a bubble sort or whatever from scratch. Like that stuff just always seems silly to me. Like I would actually say that as a negative, because like you're wasting our time when there's like a library for you to just use instead. So I don't know.
Good
Yeah.
point. You know,
Yeah.
that the bubble sort thing reminds me of a horror story of an interview that I had. It was back in 2014. I interviewed with Netflix, and that was when Netflix and cloud engineering was like the height of, you know, they were the top of the top. They were leading the charge. They were producing a ton of tools, and so I was interviewing to do DevOps on their big data team, and I had gotten through the first few rounds to the point where they flew me out for a full day interview, and this was just the worst experience I've had. They had me do, prior to coming in, my first technical interview was to do solve a graph data problem for a recommendation engine, right? So that you because we're recommending movies to that you liked or whatever, you know, so on and so forth. So I solved this problem, and I was working really hard on it. And then I was like, I can optimize this and do this better. And so what I did is I wrote it with recursion. And so I took it a step further, but I didn't save my code. And so I went into this interview and I had provided them this recursive algorithm to parse through the graph, and was really proud of it. And then, you know, I went into this just nightmare of an interview where I was having lunch with someone, and they said, not only like I'm a Midwesterner and they gave me just a small salad for lunch, but, and so my brain wasn't like working at the right capacity. But this person literally told me, "We don't hire people like you. You're too young." I was just flabbergasted. And then right after that, who I would have been directly reporting to came in and said, "I don't want this recursively. I need this iteratively because we're doing big data and you're going to run out of memory." And I hadn't had what I would say was a sustainable lunch, and I was just, you know, literally kicked in the teeth. And then I was asked to completely rewrite my algorithm and unthink the recursive way I was stepping through this, and I bombed it. It was really, really not a good experience.
That is tough. At our previous company, some people's current company here, like our code was never anything, you know, too elaborate. Like maybe at Netflix or something, I could get like where they need to optimize and have like geniuses writing their, you know, making sure it's deliverable for any device or anything. I get that, but yeah, on the spot like that, it's so
Well,
unfair, I think, to showcase anyone's actual skills.
That's one of the things though that I'm also looking at my teams is I don't know if I want like geniuses. I don't want that big ego, that inflated ego that says I'm the best around and I know everything, because what that does is it breaks my like the community that we've been building, the culture. It breaks that because there's one person who thinks they're better than somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's not what we want. We want to provide this welcoming environment so that people are growing together and supporting each other, empowering each other. And that's another one of our core values, is empower others. So it's all kind of like wrapping up and you know, making this nice little comfy nest egg of growing good engineering teams, rather than, you know, hiring the sharpest who may not be a good culture fit because they may be, you know, more interested in getting getting that whip of yeah, I got it right, you know, because I've seen a lot of personalities like that in other organizations, and it's toxic. It harms the cohesiveness of the group.
Sure does. Yeah, when you get that individual who thinks they know more than everyone else and they're the only one who can, you know, engineer things properly, it causes a lot of
Or
tension.
they talk down to somebody who asks a stupid question, right?
Right. I got to give you a time check, Derek. I think we could talk about this for like over an hour, but yeah, we are at time.
I think I touched on the things that I wanted to bring up. Does anybody else have anything that they wanted to talk about?
Nope.
Yeah, all around great conversation, and good to see so many people joining up. Please continue to participate in these talks, and we will continue to work to drive more and more engagement with the community, and hope everyone has a great rest of their week.